Watching AlJazeera English and seeing what was happening on the streets of Benghazi and Tripoli, does he say he has any tangible evidence of alleged humanitarian crimes?
Well, of course, that's the whole point of the investigation, to get to the bottom of the allegations that have been made. And so it is going to be a process that will involve the African Union. It will also involve the Arab League. A number of individual countries will be consulted. Interpol and all that they can bring to an investigation of this kind will be used as well. And of course, Mr. Ocampo has experienced investigators who have been well versed in going into very difficult situations and piecing together a picture of what has happened. He'll take all of that, put it together into a report and present it to the judges here at the ICCC. He reckons probably sometime in June or July. They will then look at that evidence and decide whether or not arrest warrants have to be made. But I think even though he believes that this is a judicial process, a clear message has been sent out from The Hague to Muammar Gaddafi, to the Libyan regime, and also to the protesters. We are watching you very closely, and if you do anything that could be constituted as a crime against humanity, then you will face action, and there is a possibility that at some point you may end up in a courtroom in The Hague.
We're going to leave it there. Alan Fisher at The Hague. Thank you, Alan. Europe is backing the Arab League, which says it will support a no-fly zone over Libya. But the League's ruled out supporting any direct military intervention. US officials are wary of a no-fly zone, though. They say it could mean war. The British Foreign Minister, William Hague, said it's the responsible thing to do.
Looking at now is contingency planning. And it's right and necessary that that takes place. While, of course, stressing at all times that actually implementing anything like a no-fly zone must be legal, it must be strongly supported internationally with the participation of many different countries.
Government officials from the Netherlands are, quote, in intensive diplomatic negotiations with Libya as they try and win the release of three Dutch Marines. They were captured on Sunday by forces loyal to Muammar Gaddafi after they landed in the coastal city of Sirte. Dutch officials say the Marines were trying to rescue 2 Europeans who've since been handed over to the Dutch embassy in Tripoli. Libya's embassy in The Hague remains under watch by police while the government negotiates the Marines' freedom. I'll be back a little later in the programme now, though. Let's rejoin Adrian in Doha.
Stephen, many thanks. In Egypt, there's another new Prime Minister, Essam Sharaf, who got the job following the resignation of Ahmed Shafiq, who, you'll remember, was appointed by President Mubarak after last month's opposition protests. Here is a closer look at just who is Essam Sharif. He's an engineer by profession. He was the country's transport minister from 2004 until the end of 2005. He won praise for trying to kickstart a new nationwide transport system, but he quit after a series of deadly train accidents, which were widely blamed on government negligence. He also won support from many of the youth who were behind the revolution by visiting protesters in Cairo's central Tahrir Square. Shireen Tadros has more now from the Egyptian capital.
It was the protesters' main demand, and on the eve of another million-man march, it was met. The military announcing on their Facebook page they'd accepted the resignation of Prime Minister Ahmed Shafiq, the man appointed by former President Mubarak before he stepped down. 12 hours before, Shafiq was on Egyptian television having heated debates. He told presenters and guests he wasn't planning on stepping down, even given the public pressure and planned protests. He also defended the state security apparatus Egyptians have come to loathe.
Friday's demonstration, which had been gaining a lot of momentum here, is still going ahead. But organisers say it's not going to be a sit-in or a protest, but a day of celebration because the Egyptian people have had one of their main demands met.
Friday will be a festive day. We will finish in the evening and tell people there is no need for further action now. We need to give a chance to the new cabinet to tell us how and when the rest of our demands will be met.
This is the man tasked with forming a new cabinet, Egypt's new Prime Minister, Essam Sharaf. He served briefly as transport minister under Hosni Mubarak, but quit his post in protest after a deadly train crash. He said the state was not serious enough about solving traffic issues in Egypt. Youth and opposition.
Right, we're interrupting that report to take you live to the White House, where President Obama is speaking about Libya. Let's listen in.
Deter further violence. Put in place unprecedented sanctions to hold the Gaddafi government accountable and support the aspirations of the Libyan people. We are also responding quickly to the urgent humanitarian needs that are developing. Tens of thousands of people from many different countries are fleeing Libya, and we commend the governments of Tunisia and Egypt for their response, even as they go through their own political transitions. I have therefore approved the use of U.S. military aircraft to help move Egyptians who have fled to the Tunisian border to get back home to Egypt. I've authorized USAID to charter additional civilian aircraft to help people from other countries find their way home. And we're supporting the efforts of international organizations to evacuate people as well. I've also directed USAID to send humanitarian assistance teams to the Libyan border so that they can work with the United Nations, NGOs, and other international partners inside Libya to address the urgent needs of the Libyan people. Going forward, we will continue to send a clear message. The violence must stop. Muammar Gaddafi has lost legitimacy to lead, and he must leave. Those who perpetrate violence against the Libyan people will be held accountable. And the aspirations of the Libyan people for freedom, democracy, and dignity must be met. President Calderon.
Thank you very much, President Obama. Thank you so much for your hospitality. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, good afternoon. President Barack
Well, speaking
Obama,
right there is Mexico's President Felipe Calderon in a press briefing with President Obama after their meeting at the White House. You heard President Obama there saying that he had actioned U.S. aircraft to assist with the developing humanitarian situation on the border, the Libyan border with Egypt. He said that American aircraft would do all they can to assist Egyptians getting home and other nationalities to evacuate from the country as well. Let's go live now to Washington, D.C. My colleague Jane Dutton is there and has more. Jane.
Thank you, Adrian. Yeah, he was also saying how he was responding to the humanitarian needs, which you mentioned, and that Gaddafi had certainly lost the legitimacy to lead, and he now must leave. Let's bring in our White House correspondent, Patty Culhern, who's also been listening in. How much pressure do you think he is now under to take a stronger line of action, Patty?
Well, what's striking is that we've pretty much heard all of this before. Now, not directly from the president. He's really remained sort of behind the scenes on this. Most of what we've heard from the White House has been from the Secretary of State or the Secretary of Defense. It's been more than a week since the president addressed the cameras when it comes to Libya. And in fact, today is going to be the first time he actually takes questions on it. I think that's going to be the striking part, because the big question in Washington is, where does the president stand on a no-fly zone? We know that there seems to be a big difference between what the Secretary of State says, it's an active option, and the Secretary of Defense testifying before Congress yesterday